Hey guys, how's it going? It's been a while. Now that I've got my new desk set up mostly complete, and I've got some time, I figured I'd talk a little bit about the marketing strategy for Ghost of Yotei and why they didn't follow some pretty basic things that they should have done with that um, product coming out. I've only worked on one game where we actually used a real actor in the game for the marketing material. So I want to go over kind of what we did in our game for that particular actor, talk a little bit about maybe another game in the space, or not space, but another big title, and talk about how Yotei kind of fumbled the ball at this early stage that's really shown to harm the sales, which have been kind of lackluster. So to start out with the game that I worked on, we actually used an actual person. What we did is we purchased a license to an IP, and we wanted to stand out from other people that were using that IP. And we ran a bunch of market research to say, okay, we have this. If we were to talk to other people that we consider our target audience and say, would you be more likely to buy this game or less likely with this person? You know, what would you think? Spent a lot of time and money to make sure that the person we were going to put at the dead front and center of our whole game and our marketing push was actually going to get a return on investment and getting more people to actually get the game. We spent a lot of time on it. It was like I think they did it over like 3 to 6 months for various things. First in acquiring the IP and then acquiring the artist. Let me get this little guy out of the way. He's trying to climb up on the desk. And it was a pretty big effort. I wasn't part of the data side of that. I did get to hear all the you know, after action reports of like this is what we ran, this was the percentages, and like it was all pretty positive all across the board. And it was really important for us to actually run all those things because you can spend a lot of marketing money very easily, and you want to spend it in the most optimal way possible. And when you hire actors, like real life actors, to and use their likeness, they are part of your marketing strategy. Um, it has been the case since forever with movies to be like, oh, well, let's get a big star for this role. And then the name recognition alone is going to get people to look more into that movie or show or whatever it may be. You see this a bit with Hideo Kojima's games. So everyone that's in gaming knows Hideo Kojima. Like, there's no extra people to be gained by the people that know him are going to look at the game and they already kind of know if they want to play it or not, or at least buy it. Um, he uses a lot of real actors in his games. And, part of that's, I'm sure, because a lot of his games are very movie esque. There's a lot of cutscenes in them, a whole lot. And what that can also do is people that are, browsing through the games that they're going to try and buy, if they are not someone that knows who Kojima is, they can see the actor and they may uh, spend more time looking at that game and see if it's something that they want. If they are someone that's more into movies, they may enjoy something like Death Stranding more, or some of his other works like his later Metal Gear Solid. Because as time went on with Kojima's career, the length of all the cutscenes increased dramatically. Um, and yeah, it's getting people to spend more time looking at your game is super important because you can't spend money on a game unless you spend time. So finally, we've got Yotei, and they picked an actor to come out. And kind of early on when they announced it, immediately a lot of people, myself included, were like, this is kind of a red flag because this person's a bit of an activist. This is not someone that is like politically neutral. Like, you want to at least have an actor that's in there that's going to um, not be offensive in any way, shape, or form. I think if they had picked a female, no matter what, you'd have some people that were bringing up red flags to say, hey, we're in an era of like girl bossing, and girl bossing tends to relate to very bad storytelling. And in the case of the actor they chose, I already forget her name. Um, Probably should have checked it before I started the video, but as soon as I got time, I was like, let's get right onto it. But so they get this actor in, and she is very much pushing a lot of the gender identity stuff that's extremely unpopular with mainstream, people, at least in America. very disliked and illegal in a lot of states, or not a lot of states, a lot of countries throughout the world. You still have some places that are very much like, oh yeah, we're all into that, but by and large, you're looking at a net negative across the entire globe. And Erika Ishii, that's her name. So if Erika Ishii was just someone that was like gay or whatever and kept to herself, I don't think there would be that many issues. But you immediately had someone that was coming out saying a lot of things that were very much driving half of the country away from like the individual. And the majority of people that are looking at this game, they're not looking at the actor, they're not looking at them and saying, "Oh, is this something that, who is this person?" Voice actors, generally people don't care. Some people know who voice actors are for various things, and we don't like them in various roles. I don't really think I know any voice actors really, except for like Paimon's VA. Most of the things that I look at are like localizers, like where I know if certain localizers work on a game or an anime, they're going to make it about them. They're gonna try and get away with whatever they can, as they say. For in this case, Erika Ishii, you had the initial negativity that came out with this individual, where she would take these very extreme stances, and it got worse as time went on, where we had, presidential election where we had someone that's very much pushing against a lot of these like gender like ideology things, this whole administration, and on top of that, pushing against like Antifa, where you have granted an old tweet of her saying that she's Antifa, but it's still just you're adding fuel on the fire which didn't need to be there. There was no anyone that had run any kind of metrics and data gathering to say, is this person going to be at least neutral in this role, would have come away from that study and said this person is high risk to put in this position, because as time went on and we got closer to like the end, like first you automatically had everyone kind of review bombing a lot of the videos. I don't know if I saw any that were like positive in terms of like a positive ratio for like likes dislikes, and that doesn't equate to sales at all. You like we've all seen games where people like didn't like them on YouTube or whatever, but were still wildly successful. And in the case of Ghosts of Yotei, you have a game that is successful. It looks like it's made its money back at least, but this is something that should have really made a lot more. And there's kind of like two phases to the sales. You've got your initial phase of the people that are pre-ordering and buying on day one, and it looks like those numbers were pretty decently good. But there were a lot of people that didn't pick up pre-orders, and sales beyond the first day really dropped off because they started to actually experience the game, and a lot of the concerns people had in terms of the quality of the writing of the story really came to light. Everyone kind of universally said, look, if you like Ghost of Tsushima, this is the same gameplay. Like it's enjoyable. The world is beautiful. It's just it had a bunch of weird mini games like starting out, which was like, oh, just draw on the pad. It was just like, what the hell are we doing here? And cooking mini games, and like in general, for me, I'm not a big fan of mini games and games at all. Like it's there have been exceptions. I played a lot of Triple Triad and Final Fantasy VIII. I spent a lot of time in the Golden Saucer in Final Fantasy VII, and not like remake stuff, like the original Final Fantasy VII. Getting that gold chocobo out there. But the story I'd like to talk about in a different video because I really want to like laser focus on that. And in this case, that whole wave one where you could have pushed a lot more day one copies, they really lost out on that because they just didn't do some basic marketing research. It's really a gigantic misstep that is, well, you could probably say this cost them like potentially tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And in general, my recommendation for anyone is to just not use real people, because you have to deal with their likeness. You have to deal with like getting things approved from them. Like we had to, every time we made some kind of change or adjustment, we had to get green lights from the person's agent. We'd be like, hey, can you, these are the things, here's some videos of like their usage. Cause like we recorded clips of them and we'd put them in various parts of the game. and it was a time suck. And granted, Erika Ishii's not like a a higher quality actor or actress. She's just like some rando that she's not a special individual. Versus a lot of some other actors that are really kind of A-listers, where like if you wanted to use them, you'd not only spend a ton of money, but they're probably going to be very strict in the usage of their likeness in your game. But it's just it's a high risk, high reward. Like not even high reward. It's a high risk, usually low reward for most people, because you're binding yourself to whatever they do in real life. And like I'm sure you could find people that once upon a time would have been like, oh, what was it, Kevin Spacey, to be like, oh, we should totally use Kevin Spacey for things. And if you were to use him at one point in time and then start like a 4-year process of making something with his likeness, and then at the end stuff comes out about him and you're just like, we gotta totally redo this whole thing. And that's, these things are risks where you can have people that say or do something stupid that may be relatively minor in like the grand scheme of things. Like it's kind of the stuff that Erika Ishii was saying online in like various public forums. We're not out of left field. I mean, it was in the left, but other people were saying them. It wasn't just her going off on some like random stuff. But when you just laser focus the individual and say, well, let's take some of the things that they're saying. And when they started to work with her, she was already saying a lot of like pretty out of pocket stuff where they could have just picked a different person for the role. They could have kept everything else the same and just used a different individual that was not as offensive. And they could have made a lot more money. And ideally, they would have changed the writing team and picked a different premise. That would have helped for the second half. But for this first half, just a disaster. It's been, it's unforced errors are like something that's really big in our industry right now, where we have a lot of people that will do or say things where they are totally at odds with reality in terms of what players want. Weirdly enough, things like gacha games and like mobile games in general are pretty good at just giving the players what they want because we get very quick feedback. If you have a game that's out there, you can be like, oh, we sent 100,000 people into the game. These are the things they clicked on. This is the time they spent on each screen, which is where you see certain games where they come out. And then within like a certain amount of time, it's just like all gooner bait all the time. And they're just like, oh, here's another skimpier outfit and a bunch of like innuendo. And they do it because they've run the metrics and they're like, this is the only thing that's going to save our game. Because the alternative is just it goes under, a lot of these studios shut down. And in this case, for these AAA titles, it's such a huge turnaround time for getting any amount of data. So you've got that initial pass of your focus testing, and you really need to, when you're taking that kind of focus testing data, say, is this going to be a timeless thing that we're doing? And when it comes to picking someone that is more on the activist side, whether it be on the left or the right or whatever kind of thing that they're doing, that stuff is not timeless. You run a risk of whatever the thing that they're pushing at the time completely like drops off. Because I could see in 2020, 2021 looking at certain things and saying, you know what people want? They want girl bosses and they want strong females and we want weak males because that's what they're telling themselves. And they had put in their minds that that's what people want. And we are still seeing this a lot of other media. It's still a big issue. And these products are coming out. They're getting roundly mocked. And then lo and behold, people go out that worked on it and they're just like, oh, there's just these awful people went on the internet and said that we were making a bad product because it was a bad product. And yeah, it's this whole thing was definitely an unforced error. That whole initial data gathering step just did not happen. They're still going to, on balance, succeed. And because it's Sony at the helm of all this, I'm not sure that they're actually going to change anything going on in the future. I can hope that they kind of, pull their head out of the sand and actually make games for gamers, instead of looking at like these reports where they're like, actually 52% of people are female gamers because like some granny's playing like Candy Crush for an hour a week. I could Studies like that are part of the reason that we get crummy games like this, because you have this delusional metrics that are getting pointed to as if they were actually useful. And then you have incompetent middle management and incompetent leaders that are excusing their poor decision making based on this flawed data. But I'm going off topic. I think we'll just call this video a wrap, and I will aim at making a video on kind of my story complaints that were for not just this game, but other games in general, that I think would be a fun video to make. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again in a future video. Farewell.